as I was flying into Mozambique, you go to South Africa first, and then you hop up into Mozambique from there. But on one of those customs forms, it says profession. And I've been out of the military for like 2 months. And I remember seeing that profession there, and I wrote writer. And I was like, boom, that's what Stephen Pressfield's talking about. Turning pro, flip that switch, not hedging your bets, going all in. Yeah, good to have contingency plans, but that's not the same as not doing what you want to do because you might fail. For me, I had to go all in. I had this base of reading. I had this base of studying warfare. I had this base of real world experience, and I knew exactly what I wanted to do.
Trusted and proven, pushing the limits on every shot. We never fear failure. Join us as we set ourselves against the odds, bringing you cutting-edge voices in every industry. This is the Ironclad Podcast. All right, I'm really excited today because we have one of our favorite guests and authors, Jack Carr, coming onto the podcast. If you don't know Jack, you're living under a rock, okay? This guy's name is everywhere right now. He's got massive bestsellers. His last book, Savage Son, is sold out everywhere. You need to check out his trilogy of books. He's working on his fourth, and today he talks about his story, he talks about his writing tactics, and how someone can pursue their dreams and be a great leader. So this podcast really spoke to me. Every time I talk to him, I'm fired up. Every time I talk to him, I'm humbled. He's a great guy. Ladies and gentlemen, Jack Carr. Well, I really appreciate you jumping on with us. I know you're a busy guy. I know you have a ton going on. And like we were talking before we started, it's just been awesome to watch your journey from especially from the beginning to now. It's just your hard work is just proving itself to pay off. It's just been awesome.
It's crazy. And you guys are a huge part of that journey. I mean, every little thing that I do, I try to do it, at the next level. And so that included obviously what we've done 3 times now for the video trailers, and nobody out there even comes close. Like no other author or book has anything even close to resembling what you guys managed to pull off with those video trailers. So it's just it's so cool. I sincerely appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate that. That means a lot coming to you. I think one of the coolest things on that point is since we met, it's been a few years now. Everything that you've envisioned and you've discussed even behind the scenes when we were just chatting, from getting the book picked up to being on some of the huge shows that you've been on to getting picked up for a series, have come to fruition. How do you put those actions in place, and what is it that gives you that edge, do you think?
I'm not exactly sure, but one thing I do know is that if people are looking for that opportunity, or they stumble into something, or something presents itself, you have to be ready to take advantage of that opportunity, or just be able to say yes, and then to actually have a product, an idea, something that lives up to those expectations, or that like for the book, I got that door cracked open to Simon & Schuster, and I could have had just something horrible to hand them, or I could have had nothing at all. I could have just been talking about maybe someday I'll write this. Oh, if only I could get a break, or gosh, I would love to write something and then get it to a publisher. Well, you know what? All that time doing that has to be spent on doing the job, getting that done, so that when that door does crack a tiny bit, bam, you can just kick it in or breach it the rest of the way, or whatever you're going to do, and have that thing that's ready to go. So I think it's all about just not wasting that time thinking about or just dreaming about what you're going to do in the future. But yeah, having that dream, having that vision, but then actually doing it, and stop studying how to do it, or worried about how to do it, or worried about how you're going to get that break, or worried about who you know or don't know. No, you just have to you got to just put all that aside and actually do the work. So I think that's the biggest part of it.
Yeah, that's awesome, because there's things that you've done that could be looked at as obstacles to others, but you've embraced. One of the cool things is, for those who haven't read your books, there's sections where there's blackouts, and it's DOD has blacked it out, and you've embraced that and made it something really cool. Can you tell me about finding that balance and how you came up with that, and then continuing on finding the balance between real world and knowing that you're going to have to jump through some red tape?
Yeah, so just being so close to all the No Easy Day controversy and the Bin Laden raid and all that stuff when that book came out, and how it didn't go through the review process, and just being so close to that, even though mine was fiction, I knew I wanted to submit it just to make sure, because the character is so closely tied to my background, that I just wanted to make sure. And so I submitted it, and it took 45 days for them to get back to me, which was fantastic because they're supposed to take 30. And I thought, that's just amazing. 2 weeks late. Wow, amazing. So I did it. So they took out 9 sentences out of that first one. And I thought, okay, kind of a pain because none of this is classified. You can find it right here on a government website. But then I thought, instead, how do I make this into a positive? How do I turn this into something that enhances the book rather than detracts from it? Although I do frame it as, hey, it's not really secret. It's just someone with a black pen that's getting a little overly zealous in one of those offices back there at the Pentagon and just blacking things out. But the second one, they took 7 months and they took out 54 passages. And I appealed that one. So the lawyers went and they've tied every single redaction to a publicly available government document. And it's fantastic. The work they did was absolutely incredible. I don't know how they found all this stuff, because some of them were a bit obscure. And then some of them are right there in your face, like just go usnavy.mil and it pops up and like, oh, look at that picture right there. Yeah. Why did they block it out in the book? And that's a real case, actually. And 137 of those on appeal. And it took a lot of time. So then I thought, okay, well, why don't we take those out of the paperback so that people have a reason to get that paperback and compare it to the hardback. So it's like something fun and interactive for them to do, to see, hey, why did the government want to take this out here? And then here after an appeal, and it goes up a couple notches in the chain of command, then they could put it in this one. So just trying to take those things and turn them into positives and kind of share the journey. A lot of it is sharing the journey. Because back when I grew up, an author couldn't share a journey. They do an interview here, maybe there, that's it. But now with social media and everything else, you can be very transparent, which is great. And it's tough and it's time consuming. We can talk about that as well, as far as places to invest your time, energy, effort, resources. But you can share that journey with people. And I thought that this would be a way to do that. Talk about those redactions, how I then tried to turn them into positive. So each of the first 3 books have redactions. And this third one, though, they wouldn't let me appeal it. We did the same thing with the attorneys, tied it to all publicly available government documents. And they wrote a letter back saying they wouldn't let me appeal, even though we met all timelines, everything by the book. And so going forward, I'm going to take that as them telling me, hey, stop wasting taxpayer money.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm going to go with.
Man, I think it's cool that you've been able to do that. I also, I was looking through just some stuff when we were talking about the podcast. I was looking through some stuff and old content and interactions that other people have had with your books, and just searching hashtags and just the opening experience of a book when you send it out. And I didn't even know this until we were on the last shoot. I didn't realize that you were really the brain master behind that, kind of designing these things and creating these experiences. It's really incredible the type of community that you've created, and the ability for people to get involved with the experience of opening one of the books and having the cards in there and having the breakdowns. Are these things that you've studied in different industries, or is this just stuff that popped in your mind? How do you come up with those types of things?
Yeah, so a lot of it comes from different industries. And as I was getting out of the military, it was good to have backup plans. Like I always knew I wanted to be a SEAL, and I wanted to write fiction in this genre, but it's also good to have some contingency plans here and there. So I was reading a lot of those books on business, on like the Good to Great over here, Drive, Start with Why, David and Goliath, the Creator's Code, like all these books like that people were kind of reading and talking about cocktail party stuff, like, that sort of thing. But they're interesting to me, particularly the Malcolm Gladwell one and some of those other ones that were popular for a while, kind of in that, not really self-help, but I guess it maybe falls into there, but leadership, business type stuff. And then I'm reading those and looking at some of the examples that they give in a lot of those books, because usually they talk about some sort of a theory, and then they give a case study with either like going all the way back to like Ford, and then talking maybe about Apple or about, whatever else. And things. So you can just hear the idea, kind of conceptualize it, but then you can tie it back to something tangible that, like the car in your driveway or the computer that you use or whatever it is. So I was reading a lot of those. And then I have a great friend, Garrett, who you met, who does, designs, all that sort of thing. And we got to talking about the second book, about True Believer, and about doing things that would allow people to share with their audiences, would allow people to share an experience of getting a book, just like you can experience getting your iPhone. Like if you got an iPhone in a little manila envelope that was like padded from the post office for whatever, it's the same product, but it's in a manila envelope. It's not the same when you open it. You don't want to share that opening with anybody. You just want to get your iPhone. But when you get the actual iPhone, like that thing is well thought out. You probably know about Steve Jobs, like they didn't get a computer out on time because the white of the box was like whitish gray, like one shade off. And that was from one of those books that I just mentioned. But it was like one shade off. Like most people wouldn't even tell, but it wasn't perfect. It wasn't his vision. And he wanted people to have the best possible experience in opening that, even though it's going to be the same thing inside, just the way that box is done, how you open it up, that's an experience for people. So we took things from Red Bull launching new product. I was thinking about the Apple example because it's been used so much and it was in all these books that I read, and I use all those type of products too. They got me.
Yeah.
And just so thinking about how those companies did it, and then thinking about publishing and how I hadn't really seen, and I've been studying publishing for a long time. I've been a reader my entire life. I'm reading in the genre, knew where I was going. So it's not just something I started studying one day when I woke up and said, can you make money at this? Or something like that.
Right.
Like it's been my whole life, being a SEAL and doing this. So I thought in publishing, I've never seen anyone do something like that and interact with people in a way that's transparent, and then allows them to share this experience through the new media. So people can get this, whether they have 10 followers, 1 follower, or 28 million followers, and then they can open this thing and share that experience with people. So I try to do something a little different, keep things moving forward, just like I try to move the genre forward. That's the goal, even if it's just by degree, right, as I write. Well, same thing with the business side of it. I don't want to just sit there and wait for other people to do things and then complain that, my publicist didn't do this, or my team didn't do this, or no, anything from it's up to me to kind of prove myself. Like they invested in me, they gave me this shot, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to run with it the best I possibly can. And so a lot of that with the book opening was from those other companies and other industries that I've seen it done, and I just kind of took that and tried to apply it to publishing.
It's been cool to watch you apply all of those different serrations to the edge, right? Like that makes you, when you're really good at something, there's a lot of, the playing field gets pretty even, and then you start adding these edges and the experience, the brand. It's, for a guy like me who loves brand, I love storytelling. So it's
interesting. Like that's the other part of it. Like it's super interesting to me because it's something new, something I didn't study in the teams. I didn't study any of that stuff. And even when I was studying publishing, like I was reading books, but I wasn't thinking about the business side of it. I just knew that these guys wrote books and then it went on the New York Times list. So that was my expectation. I'd write a book and then it would go on the New York Times list. But I didn't realize that there was a whole business behind this. And there were these publicists and marketing teams at these big publishing houses that sometimes did a lot for someone and sometimes didn't do anything for someone else because they have to allocate time, energy, resources as well, so they can get kind of a payoff, the best bang for their return on investment on all that, those sorts of things. So, sorry to interrupt you.
No.
I had to send you book 4 because book 4, I have a great idea for the box that I don't want to give up right now. But it's I had it just 2 days ago, which is why I'm so excited about it. So I've got the idea in my head for how to switch it up for this 4th one, so people will be like, what?
And that, what I love about that is that it continues the compounding interest. You keep building on it and building on it and building on it, and it gets cooler and cooler. And one of the things that I think that you can tell from your past experience is your ability to work in a team and collaborate and be an asset. And I think that a lot of people, especially artists, it's hard sometimes to be an asset. It's very easy to fall in love with this one thing and not be able to collaborate. And it's clear that you're able to collaborate, and one of those things is with the production, right? Like you're now going into series mode. Your product, your baby. How has that been? Have you had a chance to collaborate at all and watch it come to fruition? What is that like?
Yeah, so I got the initial call on that So it was optioned before for a film or a series before the first book even came out. So before March of 2018. But this last December, I got the call about being involved in that. And usually they like to just get rid of the author right away once they own that option or whatever, and exercise that option, and they're going to put together the writing team and the production people and like scouting teams and like all the rest of it. And they just want the author to go away, because most people's experience in Hollywood is that if they have the author involved, he or she is just raising their hand saying like, oh, you ruined my vision. That's not how this is supposed to go. And for me, I've been studying this. And when I say I was studying writing and all that, I was also studying movies that were adapted from books like First Blood. And so I always think back to that one when it comes to two separate projects that are entirely different from one another. I mean, the same themes and all that sort of thing, but they're both fantastic. A lot of times people say, oh, the book was so much better than the movie, they ruined it, or the movie just has the same name. It's a great movie, but it has nothing to do with the book or whatever. So in my mind, when they first reached out, because Chris Pratt wanted me to be involved, and so all the rest of the people underneath are like, oh, we have to have this guy involved. So we had the initial call, and I think I explained this whole background and talked about these different movies and book adaptations, and how I had no problem separating these into two separate projects. Like Chris wants to keep the theme of the book, obviously, but also that grittiness, that authenticity, and that's why he wants me involved in it, because Hollywood can sometimes do a lot of Hollywood type things, especially when you're dealing with like military and probably law enforcement as well, but particularly special operations. And he wanted me to be a part of it. So I think I put them at ease by talking about that history that I knew so well, and then talking about how I can look at this as two separate projects, but just keeping that theme, that authenticity, that realism, that grittiness, and keeping that going forward, but having no problem with them doing what they need to do, and understanding that when you tell a story visually, it's different than telling it as you're writing out chapter after chapter after chapter. Totally different mediums, obviously. And it's fascinating to me. So for that first series, actually that first script for the pilot, that's what they walk in then to these other, when you see that there was a bidding war out there and all that sort of thing that was in the news, if you read anything about it.
Yeah.
They take that. So Chris takes that pilot script, and there's, I think it's going to be 8 episodes, but 8 to 10, somewhere in there. So he takes that along with the director, Antoine Fuqua, and then the showrunner / screenwriter, and they, all three of those guys and that pilot, go then to Amazon, go then to Apple, go to Disney, go to Showtime, whatever, all the Netflix, all that, and that's what they talk about. They talk about that pilot, and they talk about that vision for the next episodes, and kind of that's how it goes. And then probably the lawyers and everybody get involved from there. But that first script, I got to be intimately involved with creating that pilot episode, and it is awesome. It is awesome. Different than the book, but so cool. And they've changed it they wanted to make it kind of a psychological thriller rather than just like a political action type show. And I think that's such a great way to go. I absolutely am thrilled with how they're doing it, because it makes the protagonist, James Reese, makes him an unreliable storyteller. So it goes more into the drugs that the government gives him, traumatic brain injury, PTSD, and all those things kind of come together and making the person that's watching not be able to trust his memories. So it's really cool the way they're taking it. And of course that could all change. I'm sure it can go through many iterations between now and the start of filming. But, and then to answer your real question was, so now I'm advising on the rest of the scripts. And because of COVID, they have the writer's room together in LA, but it's really via Zoom. So they're doing it via Zoom. And then they call me in to ask questions. Then they'll send me those other episodes, and then I'll go through with the red pen and do my thing and send it back. And then we go back and forth from there.
That's pretty awesome, man. I mean, I know like past career, you do something and you see it on the news, right? And you're with your team, and you did it with your team or under the flag. And now you do something like this, and you're sitting back with your family, and you're hearing about Pratt and world, like influencers of the world, entertainers of the world. Are you just in it right now and not really processed it like that? Or is it something that just momentum continues to push?
Yeah, I think that'd be fair to say. So I'm in a full-on sprint all the time. Like I was just downstairs, locked in the guest room, working on book 4. My alarm went off on my phone 5 minutes before this, and I sprinted up here to get everything ready. And that's how almost every day is. It's just crazy. It's just insane. So also, what plays into it is that I expected. I shouldn't say expected. Maybe that's the wrong word. But my vision from this thing from the beginning was for Chris Pratt to star, for Anton Fuqua to direct, and for it to be either a movie or maybe an Amazon series would be best. But out of all those streaming services, Amazon would be the best one. So for me, it's always been a part of it. Just like, of course, it's going to be Simon & Schuster. Of course, my editor is going to be Emily Bessler, who was the editor for Vince Flynn and Brad Thor. Like that. There wasn't any other way, really. So that's all the thought I gave to that, though. Same thing with the movie and a series. Like that's what I thought of. And so now that it's happening, I'm still in this full-on sprint, just like I have been for what seems like my entire life. So I haven't picked my head up really to take a breath yet because one, being so busy, and two, expecting those things to happen. But expecting is the wrong word. But it's just been part of my vision. Like that's how I wanted it to go, and that's what I was working towards, and that's why I was putting in all this time, energy, and effort. And so when they happen, it's awesome. It's awesome, but it's not like I was just sleeping and then all of a sudden I got up one day and I got a phone call and they said, "Hey, how would you like to write a book and have it be a movie? I'm going to make you a star, son." Like,
Right.
like that's, I was walking through Albertsons and they're like, "Oh, you could be a model, like come with me." Like, no, like that's not how it worked out. So it wasn't like a shocker. And from the outside, I can see it like looking like an overnight success, but really, I started reading at a very early age. In the 5th grade, I was reading Hunt for Red October and knew that I would one day write in this genre. Never missed anything from Nelson DeMille, from David Morrell, from A.J. Quinnell, J.C. Pollock, Mark Olden, Stephen Hunter, all these guys that I read growing up, and applied that to this writing. They were my professors in the art of storytelling, and then for terrorism and insurgencies and counterinsurgencies, and then doing the job downrange and putting that all together as I started writing. Like, I guess that's an overnight success, but it's really almost 40 years.
Yeah, no, that, it is funny how people see and perceptions are different for everybody, because they could see this and they could identify it as that. But for you, it's been a way of life, right? And one of the things that's missing today, a lot of young folks, especially people that are listening to this, I just heard this statistic. Jim Quick had a book, and he was saying that in the 1400s, the amount of data that someone took in a lifetime was what someone takes in today. And a lot of us are watching just content and video. How would you encourage someone who isn't a big reader to start, and what would they get from that?
Yeah. So it's something I struggle with my kids, because I was read to pretty much every day of my life as a little kid. I still have great memories of my mom reading or my dad reading. And I did that with my kids, like when they were born, like right away, boom, I was right there by the crib, like reading. And then they got to this certain age, and all of a sudden, well, obviously I'm not going to read to them forever. But they got to this age and didn't continue on their own. So it wasn't like that handoff of the torch like it was from my parents to me, where all of a sudden then I went to like young adult type reading stuff. And then eventually I looked up at those shelves and was like, okay, I'm ready for what's on my parents' shelves now, like 5th grade, 6th grade, started taking those off and then building my own library, much of what I still have behind me here. And so it wasn't like that with my kids. So what I'm thinking, I don't know if any of this is true, but that audiobooks will probably be essentially their gateway into literature and into reading. And whether they take that step from audiobooks to reading, I don't know. But because of the way they take in content, and because of the way that, podcasts are so popular because it's a conversation, you're part of that, and being drawn to their Instagram and Snapchats in particular for the people that are younger, like my kids, I think the more natural way for them to become readers is through that audiobook. Yeah. But I'm not sure, because they haven't taken that step yet, as much as I encourage it.
Right.
They haven't taken that step, and you can't like force it. You can't I feel like I can't make them sit there and force them to like something, because they're going to not like it if I force it. No matter how good it is, how much they really like it, they're going to tell me they hate it and throw it aside. So it's tough. It's tough. But for younger people that are into that, obviously we're getting bombarded with things right and left all day, every day, alerts all over the place, all this video content, making your own video content to then share as a way to interact with people. But I think the gateway there is going to be the audiobook, and hopefully they fall in love with that and then want to know more, or are curious about, hey, this person is reading it, this narrator is reading it with his own intonations and all the rest. What would it be like if I did this? And then maybe they pick up the book from there. But time will tell. We'll see. It's one I struggle with, though.
Yeah. No, it's good. And so another thing that a lot of the listeners here, that, they're really interested in high performance. And that's why we talk to a lot of successful business folks, entertainers, SEALs. Can you recommend, and I've heard some of your recommendations on the fiction side, can you give me a recommendation on a leadership book that you would push to someone?
Oh yeah, right here. Boom. Once an Eagle, Anton Meyer. And this one right here is my most gifted book. And it's kind of thick, so you can use it as a weapon also if you need to, a doorstop or something. But it's historical fiction, but it's really a case study in leadership. And so, they'll get some history out of it, but it follows two guys from before World War I up until Vietnam. And one of them is earns a battlefield commission in World War I. The other one's always an officer, and he's always like he's like this political animal, and he's one step ahead of this guy that gets the battlefield commission. But it's I used to give it to my guys in the platoon, and I would write a letter in the beginning that kind of framed it for them. And I finished that letter by saying, hey, there's another one at the back. And one at the back of the book is sealed. And to read the one at the back, they have to first read all this. They have to go through all of this first to get there, get my letter in the back, and then get my take on what they just read, so I don't kind of pollute their reading process ahead of time. So it's really Once an Eagle, and it's not a how-to book, but it really is a case study in leadership, and it is the most valuable of all these leadership books over here that I have read. Right. This is by far the most valuable.
That's awesome. I'm putting that one on my list. That's going to take me a while. That one's a thick one. You know what?
The audiobook would probably take you, I don't know, like 100 hours. Who knows? It's a big one.
You know what, though? You even mentioned when you had the sealed one in the back, you even then you're thinking about the experience and making it something that makes impact and enjoyable. So that's really cool. That's cool to hear.
Yeah. It's and people remembered it. They got to take the time, energy, and effort to to type those letters out, to sign them, to do all that sort of thing. And I personalized each one. Like they'd have the main points in there, but then I personalize it to whoever it was going to, and shift it up a little bit. So it's always a pleasure for me to do that.
One of the things that I've always admired about you, and you made this when we did the Eagle Beyond piece with you. You made this clear. It's like your definition of success, and it was about your kids and how they turn out, and that really impacted me, having young kids, and especially being someone who pursues my craft so heavily. And sometimes I question, like, well, I have to balance, my family sacrifices just as much as me to get to where I want to go. But, people ask me about work-life balance, and I still am developing my thoughts on that. I almost feel like it's a hybrid. I don't even know if there's a balance as much as it's one and the same. I'm interested to see your thoughts on work-life balance, because you've had your past career and even the career you're in, you have to be so invested, and so does your family. Can you talk a little bit about that and how you find that balance?
Yeah, and I think it's something that we're going to continue to struggle with. Definitely don't have it figured out. In the teams, it was almost easier. In the SEAL teams, it was almost easier because your family knows, or they should know, you have to talk about it, that pendulum, as far as family over here, team over here, like that pendulum has to be over here, because people's lives are depending on the decisions that you're going to make not just downrange, but in training too. And that pendulum has to be here, because you owe it to those guys under your command to be solely focused on them and the task at hand. And you owe that to their families, you owe it to the country, you owe it to the mission, to the team in general. So as long as your family understands that and gets it, then I think that's the way to go. But when you get out of said SEAL teams and the decisions that you make don't necessarily impact their other people's lives as far as life and death, well, I've noticed that pendulum, you need to find something that works for your family and works for you, and as artists, like that. because that creative, that can take over, and it's hard to stop once you're like in the groove and you're going and you're into it and you love it and all that stuff. You're so passionate about it. I think it can be difficult for, I think these doors are closed over here, for your spouse to see that and see you just so invested and so having such a great experience and being so passionate about this thing that it's hard for you to then take that and then be so passionate about this over here. And I think that's a big part of it, is being able to transfer that passion. And when you're with said spouse or kids, to be fully present. And that's something I need to work on as well, because even as I'm running up here in the back of my head, like I'm thinking about what I was just writing downstairs, and I'm like, okay, the conversation needs to go here in that dialogue I was just writing. And I need to mention this because later I need to tie it all back in for the readers that are perceptive and leave this other, it's just like a hint, some foreshadowing there or whatever. But it's hard to turn that off, and you don't really want to turn it off as a creative person because those are the juices, they're flowing. Like that's your moneymaker.
Yeah.
It's what you love. So it's tough. And I don't know if I'll ever quite get it down. A lot of it is obviously doing the best you can and figuring out what your family can deal with and what works for you guys individually. So I don't think there's necessarily like a life coach that can talk you through something, or a book to read that you're like, okay, I'm going to check this. Like, we all know we need to be present with the ones that we love. We all know that we can't solely be focused on work all the time, because then we'll pick up our head and our kids will be out of college and be like, where did that go?
Yeah.
So, but for everybody, it's going to be different.
Yeah. And there's different seasons too, huh? I mean, it just depends.
Yeah. Sometimes you're going to be in this full on sprint. Like right now, it's building this foundation. And I think everybody that does is in some sort of whether it's a creative space or not, like, you're still building something, and you're still building this foundation. You're building this, for me, a readership that are going to then tell a friend. And then the next time that friend's going to get the new book that comes out, and hopefully they're going to tell a friend. So then the next one, they get that next one. And you just keep building this over time, this fan base, this readership, and you're building a business. So I don't know what stage you get to when you can kind of pick up your head and be like, yeah. So I'm just not sure, because I'm not there yet. We're still in the building that foundation phase. So I'm hoping by the time we get to the third or the fourth or the fifth floor, we're up there, we can take a breath and look out and be like, it's a solid foundation right here.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a breath, but I don't know. So it's a tough one. I think everybody's going to struggle with it. And it's not ever something you're like, I've got it.
Yeah.
It's a lot of it's doing the best you can.
Yeah, I hear you. And a part of that is doers do, and it is part of that drive, is having those things. And even what you were talking about, like being completely present, I think that, and this is important for us to talk about on our podcast as well, because like I said, a lot of people are trying to gain from people that do, and that experience a lot. Sometimes paralysis by analysis can kick in. And for anyone who's listening to this, and you would say, and sometimes they might feel like they could be powerless over their own life, or they don't know how to take that next step. Do you have anything that could enact change in that?
So the analysis by paralysis, it's a great phrase, but not even on the analysis part. It can be that, but it can also just be before you start, like studying how to do something. So I get these questions all the time about, what books did you read on writing, or how did you read on publishing, or how to do this? And I did read some, and I was just taking pictures of them for a book list the other day. So they're out in the other room. But I read all Stephen Pressfield's books on creativity, from The War of Art, Authentic Swing, Do the Work, Turning Pro. He has a new one out in that series as well. And he, of course, wrote Gates of Fire and Legend of Bagger Vance, the Afghan campaign. We spent the last few days together actually on the range in Oregon doing some shooting, and did podcasts and got some content and all that. He was just a fantastic guy, amazing guy. I read On Writing by Stephen King. I read The Successful Novelist by David Morrell. And those are really, that was it. For me, I was like, okay, I've got it. All these guys are saying that you need to do the work and you need to make it as good as you possibly can. And essentially don't get distracted. Don't get off track. Like that's all of that. And so I was like, okay, I got it. Boom. And they were right over here in our other house when we were still living in Coronado. Boom, right there. So as I was typing away, I'd have those guys right there. I'd see it. And right now they're behind me. I might move them out here in front of me actually. And so a lot of people probably kept reading books on writing, on publishing, on agents, on whatever else, to the point where they never actually did the work that they wanted to do. I'm sure there's probably most people like have done that rather than sitting down and doing it because they think they can get that one extra thing maybe, or they're going to get that one extra hint, or that person's going to tell them that one thing from that next book or that next blog article or whatever else they're reading on how to do something. So for me, it's important to know when to say, okay, I've done enough of this. You know what I need to do? I actually need to do this thing. Like if I want to start a coffee shop, I need to stop researching how to do this and how to build a business and how to do all these things and how to structure everything correctly. You know what? We can fix that stuff. Let's just do this. Let's do it and make that decision. And what Stephen Pressfield calls turning pro. And as I was actually flying to Africa after I got out of the military to go to Mozambique to do research for book 2, even though I didn't even have a publisher, didn't have an agent, didn't have anything for the first book, I always knew I was going to write 2 for sure because of John Grisham wrote A Time to Kill, could never give that book away. And if he had stopped when no one was buying his first book, he wouldn't have written The Firm, and we wouldn't have The Client and all these other, the Pelican Brief and one John Grisham book a year. But as I was flying into Mozambique, you go to South Africa first, and then you hop up into Mozambique from there. But on one of those customs forms, it says profession. And I've been out of the military for like 2 months. And I remember seeing that profession there, and I wrote writer. And I was like, boom, that's what Stephen Pressfield's talking about. Turning pro, flip that switch, not hedging your bets, going all in. Yeah, good to have contingency plans, but that's not the same as not doing what you want to do because you might fail. For me, I had to go all in. I had this base of reading. I had this base of studying warfare. I had this base of real world experience, and I knew exactly what I wanted to do. So there's really no excuses in my case. Like, it was time to get down to business and turn pro. But it's really flipping that switch and a mental thing to decide, hey, I'm a writer, or I'm a businessman in this sector, and just making that decision, even if you're not there yet, if you're not a published author or whatever, you can still be a writer. But you can just flipping that switch and making that like, yep, when people ask you, there's no hesitation. What do you do? I'm a writer, and now I'm an author. And I think making that distinction in your head, flipping that switch is hugely beneficial. It just frees you up to not say, oh, I wish I could be a writer one day. No, you are. And what does that mean you do? Oh, it means you write. It means you sit down in front of that computer, in front of that typewriter, whatever, and you do the work. That's it.
That was awesome. I'm fired up.
Yeah.
All right, action. So we'll do our wide and we'll do our close up here.
Scene 101A, take 3.
Guys, is this my trailer?
Let's do one of these and then we're good. All right, ready? Oh, that storm is blasting. That sun comes out for real right there. That's worth the fight.
3, 2, 1.
We'll go into our last segment. It's just rapid fire questions. And I've never heard you or seen you in a point where you couldn't give an articulate answer really quickly. So that's something I've always.
Now there's pressure on. Now you really put the pressure on, though. No?
Hey, I will say, like, every time, no matter what we've done together, I'm always like, man, it's just so impressed with your answer. So these are simple. So, but I think people get a ton out of this section, and this is one of our favorites. It's one of my favorites. So I'll start you off with what's the best advice you've ever received?
Ooh, that's a good one. See, now I'm thinking about all the pressure that you guys put on me. I'm going to go back to Once an Eagle. So it wasn't that something that somebody told me, because I've been very fortunate to run into people throughout my life who have been mentors and passed on their lessons learned so that I could do things better than they were, whether it was in the military or just life in general. But there's a passage in Once an Eagle, and it's where the protagonist is talking to his son. His son, I think, is about 10 years old at the time. And he says, hey, you can't help what you were born, and you might not have much to say about where you die, but you can and you should live the days in between as a good man. And for me, that one really spoke to me. And it doesn't matter what sector you're in or anything like that. But that really spoke to me about character. People always go to the, what's character? Oh, it's what you do when no one's watching. Like that's like the very trite, I don't know. It's an easy one right there. But that right there about you can't help where you're stationed in life, where you're born. You have nothing to do with that. Oftentimes you can't help where you die, how you die. But those days in between, that goal is to live those days as a good man. So I thought that's some great advice, and I think about that often.
That's great. And that's great advice for the times we're in right now. I mean, it's just good. It's good. Okay. So this one's for you specifically. If you could go back 20 years and tell yourself something, what would that be?
Ooh, 20 years. So what would 20 years be? So I would just be starting my time in the military. Just before 9/11. Go back 20 years. What could I tell myself? Gosh, I just tell myself, it's not like I tripped and, I mean, we're all going to trip and fall along the way. We're all going to take those hits and get knocked down and get up and keep moving forward. So I've always done that, but I think I would say, hey, what's important isn't just that you get up and move forward. It's how you do that. The difference being, okay, you can get knocked down and stay down. Okay, we all know we're going to get back up, keep moving forward. That's life. But there's different ways you can get back up. And you can get back up with a good attitude that also infects almost those people around you. Like, they're going to watch you get knocked down. They're going to see how you get up. They're going to watch how you do that. Particularly kids are going to watch and see how you do that. So how you do that, then that's the key right there. So you can do it in a way that impacts those around you, and whether that's just a spouse, or it's a spouse and 3 kids, or maybe it's the rest of your business after you take a business hit or whatever it may be. How you get back up and keep moving forward. You can do it. You get to choose how you're going to do that. You can choose to stay down too, but if you're getting back up, now you have another choice, how you're going to get back up and keep moving forward. So I think I would have told myself to think about that how, rather than just to jump back up and get back after it. The how you get back up and do that, a little more thought into that. That's what I tell myself.
That's good. It's good. We're often driven by emotion, so that's great advice. The next one on the list is, what's one thing someone should do every day?
Oh, one thing every day. Make someone's day. I try not to miss an opportunity to make somebody's day, and I think that really kind of was highlighted by my stepping into the social media type space, what I didn't have in the military, obviously. And I stepped in, I looked at it beforehand for like a year, just so I could study it a little bit. And then I stepped in with the publication of that first novel. And then the reviews come in for the novels, and people put a lot of time, energy, and effort into being negative. And that's a choice that they make. And even some of like bad reviews on Amazon, people write paragraphs on there, like really angry, mean, nasty things. And that's all time that they haven't spent impacting someone in a positive way, encouraging somebody else. Like, they chose to not do that over here because you only have a certain amount of bandwidth. You got to choose how you allocate it. So instead of whether they liked, let's say they hated it, so they could just hate it, put it aside, and go do something good. But instead, they took the time. And it's not just me, it's every author, anything that gets reviewed, go to that 1 star, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a book, a movie, whatever. They took the time to write like 2 very well thought out paragraphs that were just mean and nasty and cruel. So I try to never miss an opportunity to make somebody's day. Like, if I don't like something, I just didn't like it. That's fine. But I'm not going to spend too much time dwelling on it. But if I get a chance to make somebody's day, which is why when people reach out on email or whatever else, like, I try to get back to everybody. If I miss someone, then it was just because there's too much coming in and it just got missed somehow. But I try to be encouraging. I try to answer all those questions. I try to be transparent about how we deal with different things in our life or whatever else I'm getting asked a question about. So I think that's it. You should never miss an opportunity to make somebody's day.
Yeah. And I will tell you this, that has made an impact on me, your ability to do that. Even when we're at a huge trade show and there's a line of 30 people or 300 people waiting to talk to you, the ability for you to engage one-on-one it's noticeable, not only to those people, but it's even noticeable by people looking over to you, seeing that. That's a difficult thing to do.
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
I
man.
appreciate it.
That's the truth.
It does take some effort. Like, you have to put some thought into it, and you have to kind of commit to doing that. But for me, I don't know another way.
Yeah. Well, it's noticed, and it's not only noticed, like I said, that's industry wide. People know you for that. Just so that's something that I was just on the phone with SIG the other day. Jason over there at SIG, their marketing director, and he said the same thing. Just your ability to do that is, you can tell you've put in the work to perfect that. Well,
appreciate it. I mean, it's very natural. It'd be very hard for me not to do it. Like, I'd have to take the effort not to do it almost. So anyway, just try to do a little good I can while I'm here,
Yeah, well, you're doing it, man. So, all right, here's a couple more quick ones. So what is an attribute every leader should seek to foster in themselves?
I think it's doing whatever you need to do to make sure that you're good, because you can make a mistake in that you might be a certain way, but it's not evident to those that you're leading. And what I mean by that is, for me, it was very important that my guys knew, and they sense it too. So you can't fake this, but because they'll, especially in the military, the E5 mafia will eat you alive, especially if you're a senior enlisted or an officer. But that I wanted those guys to be better leaders, better combat leaders, that are tactical combat leaders, that are just leaders in garrison, wherever else, than I was for them. Like, I wanted them to do the job better than I was able to do it for them. And they recognize that. So maybe if you tell them, maybe it doesn't ring true, because they'll be like, that's weird that he's telling me this, but they can recognize that. And like, it was very evident to my guys that was the case. Like, that was my goal. Because when we're making the organization stronger, moving forward. So for a leader to be able to, that's the art of leadership right there. Of course, there's a bunch of other things too, but for them to look at you and to know that, oh man, this guy's really invested in this. He's not out there to like prove that he's better than everybody else. He wants me to be the best I can be, and he wants me to be better than he's doing it. That's why he's sharing some of these things that he can do better with me. So I think for me, that was being able to share with my guys. Like, I wasn't the best at the admin side of the house. It's just not my thing. But I shared how it can actually help you to be a lot better at the administrative side of the house to those guys. But whatever it is, that was just one example. But to share those failures, things you could have done better with them as you mentor them along, not just your successes or, the group successes or whatever it may be, but how you messed up, how you could have done it better as a leader, so that they in turn are better leaders going forward.
That's great. All right, so I got two more. So this one's good. This one's especially for the creatives, and you can speak directly to this because of what you're doing on a daily basis, writing this fourth book. And this is hard when you're passionate about art and everything else. So what is the best way to stay disciplined in your pursuit of your passions?
Oh, this is so tough. So this is one that I'm struggling with, because up to this point, and still I feel this way, but I think I'm getting to a place where I can be more disciplined with my schedule. And by that, but I mean, like, as a startup, I felt that's what this really is. And it's startup. It's like starting a computer company in your garage, or a coffee company in your garage, or whatever it may be. I felt like I had to be so flexible to take advantage of emerging opportunities out there, just like I would on the battlefield. I'd look for gaps. I'd look for those emerging opportunities to then capitalize on different momentum here and whatever that was. I felt that same way as a startup, which is what this really is. Which, if you have a super disciplined day, then maybe we wouldn't be doing this podcast, and we wouldn't have done the one before. You know why? Oh, because that's my writing time, or that's my this time, that's my return email time. I can't do a thing there. It's so regimented and structured, which might be a good way to make the most effective use of your time. But as a startup, I felt like I had to be super flexible and be able to adapt. So if something comes up, the answer is yes. Like, always the answer, yes, as I started out. But now at this stage, I think it's time to like take that breath, because there's so much input coming in, so many requests coming in, that now I think it's at that stage, like, something's morphed over the last few months with the publication of this third novel with New York Times list and the Pratt stuff, or whatever it is, that base of readers getting to a certain level and engagement on social media and all the rest of it, that going forward over the next few months, 6 months to a year, I'm going to have to get more disciplined with my time. Like, there's been a transition from startup to something that's now more established, and segmenting my time and being disciplined with that time, so that I know I get this 4-hour, 4.5 hour, 5-hour writing block here. And you know what? It's in the schedule. My computer's going to do instant reply. My text is going to do instant reply that says I'm in the bunker writing, or whatever it is. Because I have a hard time. I do have a hard time saying no. But if that's done for me, I can utilize technology effectively that way. So it creates that barrier for that amount of time. Well, now I can get more structured. So that's a long way of saying it depends, I think, on what stage you're in as far as whatever profession it may be. And at some points, it's going to be maybe not advantageous to be so disciplined in your approach to whatever it is, because you're not at that stage yet. Or maybe the opposite is true. It all depends on you. But I think thinking that through and realizing what stage you're at and what's important as far as investing time, energy, effort, resources, that's what you need to figure out. So just identifying that instead of just saying, oh, I'm going to be adaptable forever.
Yeah.
I'm going to say yes to everything forever. Well, maybe that's not what's the next 6 months. Maybe that's not the most effective way to use my time over the next 6 months. Or maybe it is. That's just like at the beginning, I'm going to be so disciplined. I'm going to say no to everything in here because I'm going to be doing whatever, sculpting, or I'm focused on, returning emails or whatever it is.
Right.
Well, maybe you're not at that stage yet. Maybe you need to be a little more adaptable right there, a little more flexible in order to take advantage of these emerging opportunities that come up, because they might not be there. They might help get you to that stage.
Power is literally everything to us. When you're a professional traveling as much as we do, we can't sacrifice on power to get the perfect shot.
The last thing you want to be worried about is your battery.
We're very selective with the brands that we trust.
Not sure if we're going to charge the station, but we have an entire drawer full of core batteries.
Knowing that we have power that we can trust when we're out here on the road, it makes all the difference.
Power is something that's easy to take for granted until it fails.
You risk losing your data, you risk losing the stuff that you just worked so hard on.
Without proper power, our equipment, no matter how great the technology, are paperweights.
Just wrapped our chute in the Philippines, tested them in the elements, the heat, the wind, the rain.
Usually when it's really cold, power gets zapped like that. It's freezing out here, and this power's been holding all day.
We rely on powering products that are designed to meet our rigorous demands, so we never miss a moment.
So we have the primes, we have the minis, different power solutions for different power needs.
They last forever. We got a visibility on how long we have on them.
Intelligent Power and air travel certified.
To charge our phones and charge our devices.
There are some cool things Carr has in the works. Stay tuned for the Helix. As the technology of our trade gets more complex, we're confident that the power we use will not only match it, but help bring it into the future.
The story doesn't stop for anyone, and that is why we choose Carr.
So this is my final one, and this is the one I asked you last time. So so it could if you say it's the same, it's the same. But this is we always ask our guests at the end of each one is if you could issue one challenge that could impact your life, what would it be? A week challenge that you could impact your life. And last time you encouraged them to read a specific books. A couple you had them make a list of books. So this time, someone who's done so much, who does so much. What would be that challenge that you would give someone this time around that to enact today for a week that could impact their life?
So last time I gave a reading list, huh?
Yeah.
And interesting. One thing, gosh, once again, that's going to be so individual. I think but I think because of our conversation, it's going to be make that decision to turn pro in whatever that is. Write it down, put it on a whiteboard. Over here, I have this whiteboard over here for ideas, mapping out the fourth novel. Another side is for the business side of the house, things I need to get done, or ideas to keep building things out in the future. But I think it would be, hey, quit, because you can make excuses like we just talked about, or you can study how to do something, and that excuse is, well, I'm still studying. I'm still, I don't have my PhD yet. I can't teach yet. I don't have my PhD, or whatever it is. I don't have my MBA yet. I can't start a business. I don't have an MBA. Whatever that is, you can stop doing that now and you can write it down. So for me, yeah, I'm an author. Bam. And I wrote, and before I was an author, I was a writer, and I'm both. But whatever you want to turn pro at, write that thing down to hold yourself accountable. Sometimes it's not good to tell your spouse. I don't know. We might not be good to tell your spouse, because then they might actually hold you accountable, and you'd be like, hey, you're not the boss of me.
Yeah.
but holding yourself accountable, writing it down. That whiteboard is probably the best way to go, rather than a scrap paper that can get thrown away. So you're going to see it every time you walk by, and you see that, and you have your business name up there, or you have the product that you're developing, or you have your whatever it is, author, writer, sculptor, painter, filmmaker, whatever it is. Like, that helps you flip that switch. You want to be a filmmaker? That's what's going on that board. I want to be a filmmaker. So when people ask, that's why I'm. What are you a filmmaker? Made it yet? Not yet. Working on it. Got my first one in the hopper. Boom, boom, boom. And there, now you're talking about film, just like you're a filmmaker. So it's really that right there, I would say. And so, yeah, for a week, well, keep it going longer than a week, but would make that decision to turn pro in whatever that thing is. Don't wait for 10 years. Don't read every book on writing, every book on sculpting, every book on filmmaking. Continue to study, obviously be a student of your craft forever, but make that decision to turn pro in whatever field that is.
I love it. I'm inspired, man. I am. And once again, like I said, I just, our whole team here loves watching. We've seen the behind the scenes work that you put in. We understand it, and we watch it coming to fruition, and it's just been awesome, man. I mean, we are so pumped for you, and we can't wait for what's to come.
Awesome, man. Well, you guys are a huge part of that journey. I mean, I can't even imagine this journey without you guys. To be not just the trailers, but your friendship, and the Eagle projects, seeing you at SHOT, Shake, doing all that stuff. Yeah. Like, I can't imagine this journey without you guys. So thank you so much for the support. It means the world.
Well, the feelings are mutual, and excited, man. New things, greater things, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Awesome. Let's do it. You guys take care.
Thanks for listening to the Ironclad podcast. You can check us out more on Instagram at This Is Ironclad, or for more from the Ironclad Content Network, thisisironclad.com. See you there.